Welcome to the With Purpose podcast. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chrissy.
Life is full of ups and downs, but through it all, there is purpose.
A purpose that encourages us, strengthens us, and ultimately glorifies the Lord.
Let's walk this journey together on purpose, with purpose.
Welcome back to the With Purpose podcast. Today's episode will be the first of our devotional episodes. In these episodes, we will be working through a devotional book and over a number of episodes, read, share, and discuss some of the topics and chapters in it. For our first book, we have Beholding and Becoming, The Art of Everyday Worship by Ruth Simmons. I got this book from a very special friend. It's a beautiful book. You can't help but just be in awe
stunning.
Of the art and just everything of it while you read it. I'm not sure, just to start with that, I'm not sure if it's available in South Africa because I know she brought it back from the US, the United States for me. But I do think it might be on Take-A-Lot. You can just check. But it's a stunning book.
That's beautiful.
And Karen will start off with the introduction for us today. But before she starts, I just want to read the opening quote that the book starts with, because I think it just captures what this book is about in such a beautiful way. And it's by Charles Spurgeon, who said, "Nearness to God brings likeness to God. The more you see God, the more of God will be seen in you."
Sure.
Wow. Beholding and becoming. How amazing.
The art of everyday worship. A relatively short time ago, we didn't have an online life. Tweeting was for birds, posts were for fences, and text required ink. The advent of mobile devices brought a fundamental shift in the way we engage with the world. From the coffee shop to the subway, it isn't hard to find someone head down with a cell phone. We've been given so much to look at, but we are missing the art of beholding. We are so captivated by our technology and all that it puts before our eyes that we overlook the ways that God displays His glory through creation, relationships, and our ordinary circumstances in the day-to-day. We look for dramatic ways to experience God, but His presence and transforming work in our lives happens minute by minute. William Blake may have been the first to say we become what we behold, but the Apostle Paul certainly defined true beholding and becoming for us who long to become like Christ. We all, with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord who is the Spirit, and that's 2 Corinthians 3 verse 18. We are being transformed into His likeness by looking intently on who He is. When I was an art student in college, I spent one semester studying the work of Georgia O'Keeffe. I was living in New Mexico at the time, where the artist was well known for having painted from a remote ranch in its desert from 1930 to the end of her life. As a budding artist myself, I was enchanted by her body of work, her consistent style, her sense of identity, her fearless expression. She elevated a flower's most overlooked secrets and made grand experiences of its petals and sumptuous lines. Studying her work wasn't simply acknowledging facts, what brushes she used, what kinds of paint. It wasn't a mere intellectual acknowledgement of her prolific work. No, to behold her art was to gaze upon it with awe, wonder, and willingness to let its beauty change me somehow. Her work impacted the way I perceived nature and even influenced techniques I used in my own creative work. If admiration and study, even emulation, can cause us to see and respond in an impactful way, how much more so worship, a reverence and adoration for God? Before you discount yourself as a worshipper, thinking the label's too religious, lofty, or spiritual, Paul David Tripp reminds us, human beings by their very nature are worshippers. Worship is not something we do, it defines who we are. You cannot divide human beings into those who worship and those who don't. Everybody worships. It's just a matter of what or whom we serve. And I'm gonna repeat that line. Everybody worships. It's just a matter of what or whom we serve. our jobs, relationships, reputations, and treasures, these are just a few things that compete for our worship. We were made for one worship and one satisfaction, but our taste buds are skewed until our appetites are formed in and for Him. The question isn't whether we will use our everyday moments to worship, because we will. In the midst of ordinary places, people, sights, sounds, joys, and pains, how we direct our eyes, minds, hearts, and hands in the everyday will determine whom we will ultimately worship and what we will ultimately become. I think I should repeat that. How we direct our eyes, minds, hearts, and hands in the everyday will determine whom we will ultimately worship and what we ultimately become. We were made to behold Him and be transformed in Him. The art of everyday worship is the journey from canvas to masterpiece. This is my invitation to you to be transformed one everyday moment at a time.
Wow.
There's so much in that.
Wow.
And I feel like, I just want to say to the listeners, I have read this piece, I think about 4 or 5 times. And I read it through once and I got something from it. But I think the more you read or the more you listen to it, like the more you get out of what she's trying to convey. So I just want to encourage you to maybe listen to what I just read more than once and see what stands out for you.
I feel like every time I read it or listen to it, it challenged something else in my heart, and I'm like, whoa, I need to think about this. Okay, but this thought now came up. How incredible. I actually got chills as you read. I'm like, our taste buds are skewed.
Whoa.
We have to learn to in a new way to worship God and nothing else. How our taste buds are skewed. We need to learn to worship Him. How amazing.
That's amazing.
As I read through it, I thought we can work through a couple of questions to kind of prompt this conversation for the listeners, as well as we work through these questions and have a discussion about it. Think about your own life. Think about the things in your life that you are perhaps worshiping that's not God. So I think we're going to just dive into these questions and see what comes up for us. Okay, let's start. What does worship mean for you in your everyday life? Like, what if you think about that? How does worship look like? Not in a church, in your everyday life.
So I think for me, it's what worship means is what takes up most of my time and attention, and what are you giving glory to?
What has your heart? Where's your heart? I feel like, and I think in different seasons of our lives, different things has our heart, has our time, has our worship. When I look back in growing up, I know one of the things that I easily obsessed over, and I feel like obsession is a good word for this. And a thought that came to mind as I read this was, any obsession, anything that consumes you, that is not the Lord, is actually sinful. It's actually having you worship it. And one thing I remember where I had such an obsession in my high school years, and I actually think this is very relatable because I think most of us as women walk through it, was my weight. And I obsessed, literally. It consumed me, what I ate, how much I weighed, like counting calories, all those kinds of things. And I think you can basically narrow that down to my outward appearance, beauty, how I looked in that season of my life. But different seasons, different things, like our husbands, our spouses.
The relationship, could be children, it could be
jobs,
work, especially work, because it takes up most of your day, and that's what grabs your attention, and you focus on maybe achieving the next thing. But definitely for me, I can relate to you with that. I went through a season where I would spend hours in the mirror just looking at my mom would make a comment like, you are obsessed with how perfect your makeup is. And I was putting on so much for such a young girl. And I'd be like, no, Mom, I just want to make sure it looks good. But I was trying to please other people. I wanted their approval. And that it's wow, that's definitely, I was definitely focused on my outward appearance.
And one, like, exactly what this book says is you become what you behold. Hey, and I think these days, and she also highlighted how we are just so consumed with our phones and actually just other people's lives and other people's beauty standards, just beauty standards in a general, how other people look, and that kind of, we put that on ourselves, and we want to meet this perfect standard of outward beauty. And so I walked through this journey mostly in high school, and one thing the Lord really walked through with me was practical ways to not behold myself as much, to not be so focused on my beauty, on like my outward physical appearance. And this is very like basic examples, but two things I did to keep my eyes off myself was one, I don't have a full length mirror, which is just like a basic thing. I got rid of a full length mirror to not look at myself, my body that much. And the other thing is I got rid of a scale, to not obsess, to not almost have that temptation there to behold myself, to worship my own outward appearance. Hey, so it's interesting how through different seasons the Lord walks this journey with us in just sifting our idols, sifting our forms of worship, so that what's left is Him. Also on that note is just, if you are on Instagram and you are or Facebook, whatever form of social media, and you are constantly consuming people's content who put a lot of focus on outward beauty, outward appearance, being a certain weight or look or standard with regards to that, again, you become what you behold. That will become what you what consumes you, and where that will become your focus, and that will become an idol or a form of worship. I think it's so challenging. This short phrase of you become what you behold, and that is worship. That is everyday worship.
Everyday worship. What are you spending your time on, and what are you trying to achieve? And I feel like the Lord is so wonderful in this, is that He always prompts you. He always places, like, I shouldn't be, this is something that I'm obsessing over. I shouldn't be following this person, or I shouldn't be working after hours. I don't know. I'm just giving examples here, but He really does place it on your heart, and it's your choices whether you're going to listen to that and take action like you did with the scale and the mirror. And I feel like, you're almost like free from that, in a sense that now you're not giving that attention anymore. You've replaced it with something better and good, and your focus isn't yourself. And I think for us, it's to take that step to
that's the changing of the taste.
The taste buds.
Like you really are freed of it, and your what fills you with awe and gratitude and admiration becomes different. You don't crave, that's the taste, but you don't crave that anymore. That is not what consumes you anymore. You are craving something better, something different, but we need to slowly but surely make those changes to have different taste buds, to crave something else in our life.
And how can you have admiration or be in awe of something if you don't spend time like in it, like, or knowing God and knowing what He's done and spending time in His Word? You won't be like that.
That is so true, and that is such a good everyday thing to do, is shift your focus and really think about where your heart is and what consumes you in that way. and one of the things is, consider your priorities at this moment. For what, like if you go from most important in your day to least important, is our priorities in the correct order? Are we prioritizing like the one who ultimately deserves our worship? Is he our highest priority? Or are we giving our worship in a skewed order?
Wow.
And I think, unfortunately, life is just that, a very vicious cycle of our time is so limited. Our schedules are so full. So it's this vicious cycle of really not, almost just having that time to stand still. We don't have that anymore. Life is just, I don't know if anyone else can relate, but I feel like life is just going by faster.
It is.
It's not slowing down.
No.
It's going by faster and faster with every new year. I'm like, how are we in May? How are we in May?
It's so quick.
Like, it's insane. And we deliberately, deliberately, is that the right word? Have to make that decision to say, no, I'm going to say no to things. I'm going to stand still and prioritize not every other relationship, but prioritize my relationship with God. His highest priority. Because if he's not at the top, our highest priority, everything else will actually just fall apart anyways. So he needs to be that. And we need to hunger for that. We need to miss him. We need to miss him when he is not our priority. Like that is that will be a testament of where our hearts are. On the topic of kids, we need to also know that our kids are watching us and learning from our example. So a simple example, when Elian and I and Benji, our dog, go on our morning walk, Elian has noticed that at a certain point in our walk, I will do our daily prayer, or our morning prayer for us. And if dare I miss that point and start praying, he will say, Mama, jy moet bid. You have to pray now.
Oh my word.
So our examples and how we prioritize our relationship with the Lord, our way of being every day trickles down to our kids. And we need to realize that if we don't prioritize it, if he does not have our heart, if he is not where our worship is, it won't be for our kids either. So that's
so good.
One of the things that it's not just for us, it's for the ones that's watching us too.
I love that.
So that's with priorities. Just like with values, you spoke about values. What's our values in life? Are we valuing very earthly, material types of things? Is that what we are actually
striving for?
We can worship
that.
like material things.
The house, what the house looks like.
Another thing we can actually look at when it comes to our everyday worship is, who's our role models? Who's the people we look up to? Why are you looking up to them?
Wow.
And just what are they, what is their lives being testament of, and why are they your role model?
Wow. That is, it's like you said, you almost need to do a check of who you're following on Instagram, because if that is something that takes up your time and you're spending time on it, you're consuming that. I just think of the difference between our podcast Instagram and my personal Instagram. My personal Instagram, I follow fitness what are you, creators and influencers. Okay, influencers. I've different people. I do follow Christian accounts and stuff like that. But obviously the algorithm knows that I like health and stuff. And then I switch to our podcast one, and it's literally only Christian content and good content. And I'm like, that is another thing. We need to do maybe a check of who we're following, and when we are spending time on certain things, when we choose to go on our phone, when we go to work, obviously we sometimes can't choose that. How are we incorporating God in that? Because I want to worship him.
And how fitting the word influences. How fitting. It literally influences you. You behold it. You behold whatever is on your Facebook.
And you kind of worship them.
Instagram.
Sometimes you could worship, by giving them all your attention. And striving. Wow.
Yeah, they influence you to become in a certain way.
Wow.
Because they are who you behold.
Sure.
I love that. Joch, it's so many things to think of, hey?
So much.
Many things.
Yeah, it's very challenging.
What can we do to change and direct our worship to the only one who is worthy of it? To change and direct our worship in like practical ways I just mentioned was getting rid of the things, getting rid of the temptations, get rid of it. If it's a mirror, if it's a scale, if it's a unfollow, that's practical small ways where you can say, okay, I can just get that out of my beholding. I don't have to behold that. I don't have to obsess over it.
No.
Other ways, change your routine. Like be very mindful and intentional. That's the word. Be very intentional of getting into the Word of God. Make that a part of your routine.
And I've heard so many people say, and I can obviously, I agree with them completely, is starting your day off focusing on God. So like I did say in our first episode, like my gran used to start her day with just the prayer of saying, I'm committing this day to you, Lord, and surrendering this day to you, but then also spending time with Him first. It just frames the way that you think that day. And it's like that whatever you read is on your heart throughout the day. And I feel like it's so good. But if you can't spend time with Him first, that's also okay. You can incorporate Him throughout the day. So I remember I had a chat with a friend, and I said I was at a point where I was really struggling to find the time because I was in traffic, and then I was working all day, coming home, you're cooking, and then it's like I was having to go to bed super early because I'm getting up super early, and I didn't even have time for myself. So then she said to me, don't stress over that. How can you incorporate Him in your day? So it was, I would listen to a Christian podcast or devotional, funny enough, on the way to work. I was getting in that, and then at work I would pray before I started work, and then throughout the day I would talk to God. I'm just talking to Him and thinking about Him throughout the day. And then and then she said, she has this little you get them from the Christian bookstore, it's like a calendar thing with a verse on it, and she said she would just have that in the house, and she would look at that verse, and she would just meditate on that verse. It's small things. It doesn't have, you don't have to sit for hours, even though that would be the best thing, and meditate on His word, but this is small things that we can do. Definitely.
I think to add to that, we need to prioritize church as well.
That's a good point.
A lot of families, especially families with young kids, are in the thick of it, and it's hard to go to church, and there's a lot of excuses if you are, and I don't want to minimalize it, but if you're hardworking from Monday to Saturday or Monday to Friday, you are tired and there's a lot. But if God is your highest priority, if He's the Lord of your life, Lord over your life, if you serve Him, if you say you serve Him, you need to prioritize, even if it's just that one day, that one morning, that couple of hours on a Sunday, to get into a church community where you get His word, you form part of the body of Christ, you sing songs of praise to Him. And I think from our life, I just want to give this example. If we when we were in the thick of Elian's journey, we were not in church. It actually felt impossible for me to be a part of a church anytime soon in that time of our life, because I was just thinking, how is this gonna work? Like, we have a wheelchair, we have a schedule to follow, there's so many things, and sitting or going to church just felt so overwhelming. But then we just went one time and a second time, and eventually it became our routine. It became easier because it became a part of our week routine, and little by little it was not overwhelming anymore, and it was this glorious blessing where I look back now and I think, how did we go through the hardest years of our lives being in the thick of it? If you don't, your kid don't have to be in a hospital, just having kids sometimes is like in the thick of it. How did we do that without being in a community, without being in church? Like, that is where we as Christians, we just feel people coming around us, where we get strength, where we feel ready for the week ahead. And that just sets us off for at the right, prioritizing God, giving him at least just one day where we say, this is his day. And that's how it was in the old days, eh?
Yeah.
Sundays were the Lord's day. It's not like that anymore.
No,
Everything is open. All the shops are open. You can basically do whatever on a Sunday. But we need to just say, let's Shabbat, a Shabbat day almost. Let's give this to the Lord.
Yeah. I love that. And I feel, so the way we worship, I feel like can be so linked to how our feelings.
Yes.
And our feelings, we can also worship. Like, I don't feel like this, or I'm tired today. It can actually, the way that we worship isn't just and we discussed this on your knees, hands high, praising the Lord. It doesn't have to look like this. Worship can look like how you spend your time, how you look after the household if you're a mother, how you look after the family, and your feelings can impact those things and impact how you worship God through how you love your family. And that's what I'm trying to say. And I feel like if we worship our feelings, and I feel like I feel like I'm not the one to talk about it, because I'm so convicted about it at the moment, is I don't feel like doing this, and then you worship that feeling and then you don't do it. And that's something I'm praying about right now, is, am I worshiping my feelings, and is that preventing me from worshiping God through what he's designed me to do as a woman, and how I can just honor him and worship him in the everyday.
That brings you back to, you become what you behold. If you obsess over your fears, you become fearful. If you obsess over your anxieties, you become anxious.
Yes.
Like, that's just that consumes you then, and it takes your eyes off of God, who you can trust, and surrender your fears to. I actually want to speak about the first time the word worship is used in the Bible. For a minute, just think, where do you think it's used for the first time? In a very unexpected place, and I love that.
Yeah. Where?
When Abram had to offer Isaac.
Wow.
He says to his servants, his slaves that were with him, you stay here, me and the boy are going up the mountain to worship God. And it's exactly what you said just now. There was no music.
Yeah.
There was no happy feelings. It's actually, I think Abraham dreaded walking up that mountain, having to offer his promised son. But how worship looked for Abraham in that moment was obedience, was surrender, was trusting. That is worship as well. And again, I just take this back to something we walked through. I remember with Elian's second shunt, I was dreading going to the hospital. We had that surgery booked in advance, and that whole lead up was absolutely heartbreaking, devastating, all consuming.
I can imagine.
And the night before we had to go to Red Cross, I woke up and I was reminded of Abraham, and I opened up my Bible. I started reading. I was like, Abraham went up the mountain where he had to sacrifice his boy with a heart of worship. And it was as if the Lord was just saying me, Chrissy, go in the opposite spirit. You are consumed with fear. You are consumed with anxiety. You're consumed with all the what ifs.
Yeah.
Don't be consumed with that. Be consumed with me. Keep your eyes on me and go with a heart of worship, because I am worthy of your worship, even in Red Cross. Even while Elian is in surgery.
Wow.
I'm worthy of your worship. And I went. I didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
my heart was not in a happy place. I wasn't hands in the air, jumping up and
No.
down. It was not that.
Yeah.
It was still dreading to go, but I had to go. And I was, every single minute of every day, I had to remind myself, keep your eyes on the Lord, worship Him. He's worthy of your worship even here. And that was one of our hardest hospital visits. It was level 3 COVID. I was alone. We were completely separated. It was just Ilan and I, second chance, so many fears, possibility of sepsis, so many things.
Oh.
But I can honestly look back and say that was also one of the most blessed
Wow.
times in the hospital, in ways where the Lord just showed that He is worthy of our worship.
He is.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and that brings me to our last point. How can we worship Him in the moments we
Yeah.
tend not to?
Yeah.
And some of those moments is when we are in a hard, difficult place. Our hearts does not want to rejoice. Our hearts does not want to
No.
worship
No.
and look to Him. It's
Yeah.
easier to then just be consumed with whatever
Yeah.
superficial life
Exactly.
gives us. We don't want to
No.
worship the God who is in control of our
Wow.
minutes, of our moments.
I have such a like a practical story to tell, and I feel like God is amazing in this. He just, I don't know, we hadn't like really discussed what we were going to talk about today. Like last week, we were still like kind of deciding what kind of devotional we were going to do. And on Sunday, my husband and I were on worship. So this is really like a worship. And I was playing the piano, and he was leading worship and I was singing. And the first song started off great. I was like, wow, this is, really, I really tend to worship God when I'm like playing the piano. And I just, I really love that. And it was my father actually comes up. He does announcements at church, and it was an announcement of a baby being born, which is amazing. And then another couple is expecting a baby, and it just really hit me. I felt anger in those moments, not for them, but for my situation. I was like, why, Lord, why is it so easy for some people and not me? And then I caught myself like focusing on myself and my feelings, and I was holding back like my tears, and I just sat there and I'm like, I actually just don't want to worship anymore. Like I was like, I just want to get up and run. And I felt like the Lord was like, Karen, I still deserve worship. Like I can still worship God. He's still like, worthy of my worship, even though I feel like He's not like giving me what I want in a sense. And it was so hard to do, but just me focusing on the words and singing to Him of all the truths that we sing changed the way that I that my perspective, and it was on Him. And it helped so much. I didn't want to. I didn't feel like it. And then more practically on a day-to-day, like I said earlier, see how you can fit God into your day and incorporate Him into your day, because He deserves the worship. Nothing else does. And if you keep that in mind, wow. How awesome is that? You're spending the rest of your days worshiping the one that deserves it, not anything that's meaningless. Why would I want to give anything else my attention?
Exactly. And this almost brings me back to what we end off every episode with, do it to the glory of God. If you keep that in the back of your mind, like you're going, where you go, what you do, what you think, what you say, to the glory of God, that's also a form of worship in your day-to-day, of having this focus of I am approaching this person, this task, this situation, to do it to the glory of God is actually a form of worship.
I love that.
And I love how you just said how music is a form of worship to you, because that's a gift that the Lord gave you, and that's practical ways to worship Him too. Is with what He gave us. Gifts, but also our circumstances. For example, He gave us a child with spina bifida. He gave Elian, and this is what I want Elian to know growing up, the Lord gave him spina bifida.
Yeah.
How can Elian worship him with his spina bifida?
Wow.
If the Lord gave you this
Yeah,
journey that
yeah.
you are on, and by sharing
Exactly.
and just clinging to him, you are worshiping him with what he gave
Yeah.
you. So with our gifts, with our stories, with our journeys, with our day-to-day, we have multiple opportunities every day to actually
Wow.
worship him,
Yes.
and to actually meet him in it and look to him in it. How amazing. Yeah, I think what this book just reminded me of is actually how we are made to worship. What really challenged me, and you read that
Yes,
twice,
yeah.
is we will worship something.
Yeah.
We are creatures made to worship. So if we're not worshiping God, if you're not worshiping God, you're worshiping something else. So go check at your life, look at your life.
Yeah.
What are you worshiping? Because you are made to worship.
That also hit me hard.
Yo.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything to our questions that we worked through.
No,
now.
I think we should end off with a challenge.
Yes, let's end off with our purpose check-in and our challenge for the week. Where you are listening to this, go listen to this devotional and just the things that stand out for you. Look at your own life. What are you worshiping? Where's your heart? Who has your heart? What has your heart? What is influencing you? What are you beholding? And then what are you becoming? In what ways in your day-to-day can you worship God more?
Yo, I feel so challenged. I'm going to go have a real think about this, and yeah, thank you, that was amazing. And yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. Connect with us on Instagram at the With.Purpose podcast, and let's keep this conversation going. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review. This really helps our podcast, and share it with a friend who needs this encouragement. And remember, every day is an opportunity to live with purpose
and to the glory of God.